It's Jay. I'm back in for another one. And tonight I have with me
Captain Keith.
What's upper Captain Keith?
Maintaining, just doing it, just moving and grooving. Stick
That's
and
right.
move, stick and move, bob and weave.
That's
you
right.
know,
That's right.
getting ready for the uppercut. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Getting ready to
That's
give
right.
one.
Hey, one good turn deserves another. So
Exactly.
I'm not mad at that at all. So we are back again to discuss a couple more movies we saw. The Mystery Monday at the Cinemark Theater in Vallejo.
Yep.
The $5 holla.
I
On
like that. The
Mondays.
$5 holla. Yeah, I like that.
I borrowed that from Dame Drops, a foodie reviewer, but he talked about the $5 holler. At least I think that's where I heard it at.
Right
So
on.
maybe I'm giving him credit I shouldn't be giving him, but I think it was him, so I'll stick with that. But yeah, man, so we've been seeing interesting movies, even movies that, it's not movies that we wouldn't watch, because we watch everything. So we would probably watch it, but it probably wouldn't be necessarily the top of the list. And so with these mystery movies, we're eating our vegetables first. We never know. Sometimes we might get the dessert first, but sometimes you're going to get vegetables. I just wouldn't have went for that first. So we saw this movie. We saw it early. I think it eventually came out. I'm not for sure how wide of the release it was, but the movie we're talking about tonight is called The Order. It's a Jude Law movie, Nicholas Holtz. Ty Sheridan is in it. The synopsis is: a series of bank robberies and a car heist frighten communities in the Pacific Northwest. A lone FBI agent believes that the crimes were not the work of financially motivated criminals, but rather a group of dangerous domestic terrorists, aka Nazis, alt-right, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Folks who don't care about black people.
Well. And
even within that, it was an interesting story, I will say.
Yeah.
And it was well done,
Yes.
Takes place in Idaho, takes place in the early 80s. It feels like a timepiece for sure, small town. You got this cop or agent that don't want to give up, and he just wants to figure it out. He's a little bit smarter than everybody else, and he gets to his answers because he just sticks to it, right? But he looks like the every man, so it makes it easier for him to get around and get places other people can't get, and for people to overlook him because he seems so harmless and not a problem to anybody. So this is a pretty good movie. I did really enjoy it. I think it's an Apple movie, or it's going to go on Apple TV. Because Apple TV be having movies where they make them for their streaming network, but then they'll put them out for awards and stuff. So they'll put them in theatrical release for a few weeks or something like that, or limited release, and they come back. But I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, considering what the premise was, it was it had a lot of cool characters, interesting takes on things. The story was interesting. Like I said, like I mentioned, with the heist and stuff like that, and how this organization is kind of splitting off. You got the new folks, you have the old folks, and you have the newer regime that came behind them having a different take on things. Just like any kind of religion and stuff where people split off, they have a different way of seeing how things should go, and they find their own way. And so it's not only like a slight difference in philosophy, but also how to go about things. And you got this split. And so it's like a power struggle within the organization. And so what did you think of the movie?
I mean, it's a good film. It's depressing, but it's good. It was intense. Jude Law did a great job playing this FBI agent, burnt out, but still driven. And Nicholas Hoult is such a good actor. I almost hate that he did this role because I didn't want to see him as a white supremacist, but he's so good. I mean, he was good. He pulled it off. Very charismatic. The cinematography was great. It was kind of they made sure they gave the film an 80s feel to it by the way it was filmed. In Idaho, although Idaho almost looked like Seattle, but maybe they look similar that way because they're close to each other. I mean, Idaho and Washington State. It was very grainy. There was not a lot of sunshine. It felt very
Southern.
yeah. It felt very southern and very depressing. Just the tone,
Yeah.
but the story was good. Jude Law was a great. His character was a great cop. A great agent. Terry Husk. He had great instincts about what was going on, and the local police were just kind of clueless about how to handle the whole situation. And Nicholas Hoult as Bob Matthews, he was a menace, man. He was creepy. He was charismatic and then dedicated. And driven.
And I thought it was kind of interesting because even though they're kind of like like Nazis or whatnot, it was interesting how it didn't really lean in on that, even though that's ultimately what they were about. It was more about the struggle between power between the younger folks and the older folks, and how they ran things, and how he had an idea of consolidating things and funding things and kind of splitting off doing his own thing, and how the current leader was kind of concerned about these youngins kind of doing their own thing, to the point where he's almost kind of selling them out to the FBI because he felt his power is going to be in danger by even kind of letting them, because there's out of control too. It's like, well, what happens when you can't whoop your kids or scare them anymore? Then what do? You got to get a bigger weapon to be a threat to them, because the threat of punishment is not working anymore. So it was interesting to see that versus them hurting people because they're different. Because I sure wouldn't want to sit through that. So I'm glad they had that take on it.
Oh yeah, When we got in the theater, we didn't know that's what we were going to be watching, but because like you said, we have to ease ourselves. We have to mentally prepare ourselves for stuff like that. It's for a lot of people who are non-Black or non-African descent, it's entertainment. But like certain stuff, like 12 Years a Slave, I still haven't watched that film, and I probably never will.
Me either.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not. No,
that movie's not for me.
Yeah, it's not for me either. So I wouldn't have per se gone to see this, but because it's a Monday mystery movie, and we understand, we accept what we get, good and the bad. It wasn't a bad film, like you said. It was good. It was intense. It was a serious story. I will say this though, and I want the country that you and I are born in to understand that it's important that you identify the neo-Nazi party as domestic terrorists. It's important that you identify the Ku Klux Klan as the original, the first domestic terrorist organization within this country. It's also important to understand that when you are fighting terrorists, and when you saw Nicholas Hoult, who played Bob Matthews, he's the bad guy, the charismatic villain. He was very dedicated to his cause. He had no problem dying for his cause. When people are ready to die for their cause, that's when they're the most dangerous. So you need to understand that when you are fighting a terrorist, it's not like fighting a regular so-called criminal. A regular so-called criminal is still about self-preservation. Terrorists, maybe not so much. So, and we saw that within this film. So Nicholas Hoult, aka Bob Matthews, Bob had vision. Bob wanted a family. Bob wanted to put the power in the so-called people. And Bob was not afraid to go up against law enforcement. Yeah, his convictions were very strong. When you look at films that have the good guy and the villain, those make for the most intriguing villains, is when you know how strongly they believe that in their conviction. So for Bob Matthews, he's the good guy. He's not the villain. And those villains are always interesting when they think that they're the hero.
Well, they are in their own story.
Exactly. So it's important to understand that when you're fighting terrorism, you really have to study what you're doing, because it's a whole different breed and ball game. How do you fight someone who's not afraid to die, who almost welcomes it? How do you defeat that? And I think in the 80s there was a lot of times where the FBI was going up against the neo-Nazi party and the Klan and arresting them. And, Don Johnson did a film similar called Dead Bang, where he went up against the Klan and Nazis a long time ago. That was an interesting movie. But yeah, this film had a real serious tone that you couldn't step away from once you started watching it, because you wanted to know what was going to happen and where was it all going to end. By the time it was over, I was just like, okay, there wasn't much for me to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everybody pulled it off, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely like, the cop gets his man, and it's like casualties along the way and stuff like that. And yeah, it was interesting. And this is, well, we could go like, I guess, spoilers. The movie is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of straightforward, so it's not no real surprises really, but for all intents and purposes, it's kind of the spoiler section. Mm-hmm. They had like Mark Maron's character, Alan Berg. They took him out, so they did have some stuff where they were kind of showing what they were about and kind of flexing and stuff, because I guess he was like a Jewish radio jock, and they ended up taking him out. And it was just interesting to see how they had stuff laid out, and how, like you said, they're going around thinking that they are right, in their heads. They are, looking out and making their people number one, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just the wrong part is when you are hurting others to get that, nothing wrong with self-pride, but it's just when it goes to the point where you are, and that's why I never liked how they would try to act as if, the Black Panther was the opposite of the Klan. Nothing similar at all.
Nope.
Like not at all, but they talk as if they pair them together as if it's the same thing. Like, we don't have no equivalent to flag burning. We have no equivalent to hanging folks. We don't have no equivalent. So to the point where they get mad at Beyonce for wearing a beret, and that's supposed to be equivalent to the Klan?
Haters.
Stop it.
Well,
Stop it.
Well, you want to show the Black Panthers in a negative aspect anyway. You want to be dismissive with them, so you can destroy their true legitimacy. So, that's just more propaganda in itself. That's just another way of, you have to vilify them. You don't want them to create momentum. So this is the reason. This is why Fred Hampton was basically killed in his bed, lying next to the mother of his child in Chicago. Fred Hampton was very charismatic. Fred Hampton was bringing people together, from different gangs, from rival gangs, Latinos, whites, and blacks. He really was Huey P. Newton's, true heir, him and Bobby Seale's true heir in that regard. So, of course, you want to say, oh, well, these black militants, they're dangerous. They're like the Klan, because you don't want them to grow any more steam. So it is interesting.
Right. Their potential is dangerous.
Yeah. So, and they know that, and instead of saying that, they go the other route. So even when you think of woke was a positive term, but a lot of right-wing people and, non-black people decided to demonize that word, make it dismissive. And by doing that, all they did was just show more of their racist perspective by dismissing it. What is bad about being awake? Waking up and understanding, okay, maybe I've been asleep on some things, and this is how it's supposed to be. Now it's been demonized as a term.
Because they're using the term wrong, and they were doing stuff based off of it and labeling it woke. So that was the problem. Yeah, it's just mislabeling. That's just like, calling a steak a burger. They're both beef, but it's mislabeled. You would never call a steak a burger or a burger a steak. And then the word wouldn't mean anything. You would get tired of steak when you're really talking about burgers. And you still love steak, but so that's what happens. But, I'm sure that wasn't on accident. But it was some interesting stuff in this movie, especially the stuff where, you had the obviously Mexican guy who's trying to say that he was white, and he was trying not to get found out, because he kind of, I don't know if it's because he hated himself or because the fact that he felt community with those guys or not, but just the fact that he was afraid that they was going to find out who he really was. But I think they knew who he was the whole time, and they kind of used him to set him up anyway. So, yeah, it was interesting. I would consider it like a cool throwback crime drama that wasn't too gory. It was well done, well shot. The story was very interesting. It was layered for sure. But like I said, just wasn't a movie I would have necessarily just walked into on purpose. But was it a well done movie? Yes. Did Jude Law do his thing? Yes. He's a great character actor. Nicholas Holtz did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he's very charismatic. He did his thing. Ty Sheridan did his thing, playing the local cop with his young family and trying to figure out what's going on, but gets in over his head. So many things about it was, like I said, it was a well done movie. It was just the subject matter was just very interesting, but it was a solid movie, and I think it was realistic the way things went. It was casualties and unfortunate things as well, and this movie wasn't really afraid to kind of show that and lean into that. Do you have any other thoughts on this one, or that's about it for that?
No, I mean, if you want a serious drama, just like a slow burn, check it out. It's a good film. It's just not a feel-good film. It's an intense film. It's an intense, gritty drama, and it reminds you of some ugliness in this country's history.
Yeah. And the next film we're going to talk about is September 5th. This is another kind of throwback. The synopsis for this one is: during the 1972 Summer Olympics in Monarch, Germany, an American sports broadcasting team must adapt to live coverage of Israeli athletes being held hostage by a terrorist group. This movie stars Peter Skarsgård, John Magaro, and Ben Chaplin. This is another one we saw trailers for kind of early on, and it looked interesting. Like I said, I don't know how high on my list it would have been, but it was one that I saw that was like, oh, this trailer kind of caught my eye. So seeing it back to back with The Order was a lot, but was it a good movie, entertaining? Yes, it was. I did have fun with this movie. The drama, just with, you got a terrorist thing kind of going on, but the drama of just, should we show this? Should we not? The ethic questions and stuff like, should we be doing this? And them trying to figure it out on the fly, and the politic and the stuff that kind of had to go on behind the scenes, and how the media kind of treated the situation when it was happening. It was a good ride. It was a fun ride. It was well done. And the way it was shot kind of lent to the time and stuff like that. And it was a lot that they had to layer. And, with it being based on a true story, which could be, a little bit of truth to a lot, it really felt authentic, and how they would go about trying to figure this out. Yeah, it was a fun watch.
Yeah, very suspenseful. Speaking of terrorism, it's a theme here. Yeah, this is like 11 years before The Order, basically. Another slow burn. It's intense. There was nothing to feel good about at all within this film. I mean, at one point you do feel good for a minute, but that doesn't last long. And I just say that this news team did all they could to cover this story and to let people know the truth about what was going on at that time at the Olympics. And it's they were very daring and creative at telling this story and wanting to get it right. I walked away from this just feeling sad for those Israeli athletes. This is, in Munich, Germany, this is a precursor to the problem that terrorism will grow up to be. It's a precursor to it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like certain powers to be should have understood that. And they just didn't. Not in my opinion. They didn't. But it's a good movie. There is one scene that I did like. I can talk about that. But yeah, it's intense, suspenseful, and when you're watching it, you're hopeful because you want things to go a certain way. And Feldbaum, I'm saying the name of the director, did a great job once again of sucking us into the story you felt like you were there with them, and you were on pins and needles to see what was going to happen next, and telling the story, because it was cool to see how this news crew had to pivot to tell this story, because they were there for a whole different story. But once this happened, they were forced to pivot, and it was definitely felt like they had this obligation to let people know what was going on.
So would this be a movie you recommend?
I did not dislike this film at all. Usually when I go to the movies, I want to have a nice feel good. I want something that's going to make me feel good, or something that's going to stimulate my mind. You don't have to always make me feel good. If you like dramas and suspense, this is an excellent film in that regard. It's a period piece that's based on a true story. If you're someone who doesn't like comedies, if you're someone, like I said, if you like drama and suspense, this is up there. This is a good film in that regard. Like The Order. Yeah, like The Order. It's a good, it's got a slow burn, but it burns. So yeah. I would recommend it. Anybody who is into dramas and suspense, you'll get that with this.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend it as well, but it's kind of like if you saw the trailer and it looked like something that you were into, then I think I'd say it's a well-done movie. But if you like the trailer, then for sure, then you would enjoy the movie. It lives up to the trailer. Real quick, we go into the spoiler portion. Even though this movie is about the kidnapping of these athletes, that wasn't the main focus of the movie. The main focus of the movie basically was the behind-the-scenes stuff with ABC crew, kind of doing. They're known for sports, but they're kind of getting into journalism and stuff like that, and trying to figure out the do's and don'ts, and also the part that media plays and all, and stuff that we see and how things are handled. And it's kind of asking the question: is the coverage of this kind of situation helping or harming? Like, which one? And there's struggle and drama and politics between, like I said, what should be shown and what shouldn't be shown. And I think for that's what made it a little bit different. Like I said, even though the main thing was supposed to be about the hostages, it was really about, what's the right or wrong thing to show and stuff, and how much does the news and what we show, because it almost even speaks to how they could get something wrong and they'll go for narrative, and how like the tail's wagging the dog. We think all these people are professional, and they are professional, but then they are human, and they are kind of going for the hype of the story and egos, and don't want to be wrong or want to be first and all these kind of things. And they're making something where you have all these intelligent people are making bad moves and decisions that is really dictating what we learn and find out about things. And that could be a dangerous thing if it's not handled the right way. And so we're not dealing with information and truth and stuff like that. We're dealing with egos and trying to be first. And with that could, be a lot of misinformation coming from a good source. So I kind of liked how that was on display with this movie. So do you have any final words on September 5th?
No, it's a good serious film. If you're in the mood for a good drama, like I said, good drama, good suspense, this gives it. And like you said, the behind the scenes, you see how agile the crew is and how they came together. And it was also cool too, because you got to see a different perspective of Germany from the one lady who was a German interpreter working with the Americans.
So when they try to make a secretary and get their coffee, and come to find out she was a translator, and she was so very important.
Exactly. Yes, her. You got to see how much remorse she had being German and what happened with the Jews, and then to have to go through it again with the Olympics. You got to see her perspective and Germany's perspective. Like, this is not what we want.
Yeah, because she did move a certain kind of way, and she kind of knew it was that stigma with it. So she did try to play the background just because she know her history and knew she was going to be judged for that. It's interesting because that's kind of how we feel, with Black folks. With sometimes when we're seeing like one person does this, but we all feel like we're guilty of it. Like we got to hold the actions of a few as if. So that's interesting that they kind of go through that too.
Yeah. Because you never hear that. It's always, Nazis, Germans, but you never hear the Germans like, oh yeah, it was messed up. We don't want to talk about it. We want to move on. We are ashamed, and we don't want to be blamed for something because Yeah. So, I mean, it was good to hear that because that's the one thing
Yeah, yeah,
you weren't expecting to see. And then you see our sexism as American men. You know, these dudes are like, "Oh, you can get in the coffee?" No, I'm not here for that because I'm a woman.
yeah.
You think I'm your secretary? No, I'm not. And then the one black guy, they sneaking, pushing them
As an
in.
athlete,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, we love him. We're
yeah.
gonna have him go over there and get some info for us.
He actually got interviewed by another news team, asking him about like how he feel about the Olympics and what's going on and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
I know, that was funny, and I did like seeing the terrorist dude in the ski mask come out the balcony, like, "Oh, we watching you too." That was cool. That's in the
yeah,
trailer too. I like that. Oh yeah, we
yeah.
watching.
It's,
Just because we're
I was like,
terrorists,
are
you
they
think we
watching
can't?
us?
Yeah, and they're like, "Yep."
Right. Yeah, he
That
kind
was
of looks
cool.
out and like, whoa, yeah, that thought was
Yeah,
pretty dope.
yeah,
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of cool, and I thought it was interesting too how they got it wrong, and they said that the terrorist was saved, and everybody was kind of jumping on everybody else's information without kind of verifying, and so easily they got wrapped into a big old lie that they had to kind of undo. And
yeah.
I'm thinking like nowadays, would they say they were wrong? Would they correct that and say, you know what I mean? Like nowadays, like, do you really think that somebody, if they got that wrong, they would go back and rebut it, or you think they'll just go ahead and play it off like that's like everything was fine, like they said, and kept it going just to save face?
Well, we had a president that could not find weapons of mass destruction. You know, you didn't say he was wrong. You didn't say he was given the wrong intelligence.
That's what I'm kind of saying. It's kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
it's a dangerous
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, if I were to say
Yeah.
that, they look at me sideways. You know what I'm saying? If I were to say that, I would have lost my job. You know, I might have been put in jail as a war
But they
criminal.
wouldn't let you get away with that in the first place. They'd be like, "Show me your evidence." That's what they would have did.
Exactly.
You got
Exactly.
stopped. You would have to apologize because they wouldn't let you do it.
Exactly. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, I mean, no, they'll just say, "Oh, we were given the wrong intelligence." Yeah, is that a play on words? Is that an oxymoron? That's kind of funny to me because there was nothing intelligent about what you did.
Yeah, or they do like they say when they say that they wasn't occupying somewhere, and then we saw that they were actually there,
Yeah,
and nobody said nothing to fix it. They
exactly.
still saying no, but you got actually boots on the ground and saying, "Hey, we're here right now," showing footage of them watching them saying that they're not there.
We can't even make this subject. We can't even make this up.
So it's just amazing how things different stay the same. Like how it's just and it's only getting crazier. So I enjoyed this movie, but like I said, it was forced upon me.
Yes,
but I did enjoy it.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So it's a good drama. It's a good suspenseful drama. So it makes you think about some things. It's layered, and the director does a great job because once again you get pulled in. And you're there. You're in 1972, and you want so desperately for everything to go well. You do.
Yes.
And this movie pulls on your empathy card. For the audience because you're watching what they're going through, and you're nervous because you don't know what's going to happen. Then you're hearing gunshots and stuff. All that was very interesting, actually. Yeah,
it was.
I would have been scared.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, it was nicely done. I would have been. Yeah, it was amazing how suspenseful it was, even though it was like a throwback movie from that far back. You still felt the tension of it, and that's not easy to do. And all the characters were on point. Story, the way they went about it, and just you really felt like you were in that room, even when the dude at the end felt bad because he kind of played in the fact that it kind of went wrong, but it worked out in the end. And so how quickly you go from victory to loss that quickly, like it changed minute to minute. You don't know what's what. And so it was interesting, even though all the chaos and stuff was out there and really just stuff kind of went off the track, that the guy was still praised for his good work doing that. Like, that young guy was like, they love your work and they want to have you on.
Well, they saw that he knew how to, he performed well under pressure that he could not anticipate. And he performed well under it, which was impressive because he wasn't even supposed to be getting tested, but he took the test anyway. The test came to him. The test of life. So yeah, no, it's definitely it's a good film. Yeah, so we got spoiled. We got some stuff that we anticipated, some stuff that we didn't. But the delivery of those goods from Mystery Monday night was still worth it. What we received was still good. So it was intense, but it was good. So yeah, it was a good selection of stuff.
I can honestly say we haven't saw a bad movie. Now, it might not be the movie that we normally watch or would put on our top of our list to watch, but I can't say that we saw a bad movie yet. And so, since we seem to be hitting them all up, especially recently, we'll be back again soon to discuss some more of our Mystery Monday movies. So, just like we'll be surprised, you're gonna be surprised too. But we'll give our honest opinions on what we thought of it. So.
Yes, and shout out to our Mystery Monday movie crew member, Linda. No, she's who couldn't be with us, but shout out to her. So we'll see her soon. So she comes to see him with us when she can. So yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next one. All right, Captain Keith, that was another good one.
Thank you.
So that was Jay and Captain Keith talking about the movie and discussing the movie September 5th. And at this point, this thing got to be streaming by now. I think it's streaming. It's not in the theaters still, right? It's not in theaters.
It's still in the theaters.
It's still in the theaters?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
Okay, September 5th, now in theaters. Also streaming soon.
Both agree. If you want a good suspenseful drama, this is one of them. Mm-hmm. This one and The Order. They're both intense in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
unexpected, but on point.
Exactly. Based on true stories, both of them. So there it is.
Sure. All right. So that's Jay and Captain Keith. Until next time, peace.
See you somewhere out in space.